Women of Reddit who chose to be a side chick to a taken man, why did you do it? How did it end?
Experience 1. I had a friend that cheated on all her partners or dated other friends' partners. She was extremely attractive and seductive. She knew exactly how to get any man. The day she told me she slept with our mutual friend's boyfriend, I knew I couldn't trust her. Our friendship fizzled out months later. Experience 2. I didn't know for 2 years. When I confronted him about making plans on Facebook to move in with another chick and accused him of having another woman, he told me that technically I was the other woman, but she was willing to let me move in with them. We broke up and he moved in with her a few months later. A year after we broke up, he called me complaining that she wasn't financially responsible and wasn't able to rent a house as well as me. He asked me to move to Florida with him. I laughed at him and said he should have thought about that before telling me I was the other woman. Experience 3. I was 19, he was 39 and my manager. Now that I have grown up and I see things from an outside perspective, I feel completely disgusted about the whole situation and I feel very bad for her cause she never knew, and I believe they got married in the end. Sorry, not much to say, I just needed to take it out of my chest. Experience 4. He told me he left her. He didn't. So, I chose to put him to her every chance I could get. He'd send me letters apologizing or begging us to stay together, so I'd mail them to her workplace so she could see what a loser she was. Welp, he died at age 35, she got a $950,000 insurance payout, and I was left salty and bitter. LOL. Experience 5. Oh, one I can answer. To clarify, I am not trying to justify what I did and fully acknowledge it was wrong. I'm just trying to explain what factors led to the situation. I had just started a new job and after a few months ended up completely falling for my married boss. I knew it was wrong and tried to keep my distance, but we had a bunch of business trips together which resulted in a lot of 1:1 time. Mentally, I was in a really dark place. I had a string of dates that didn't go anywhere where I felt rejected and used, gained 40 pounds, and my self-esteem plummeted. Meanwhile, I had this super attractive, successful guy at work lifting me up, telling me I'm smart and beautiful, and that any guy who isn't into me is an idiot. Anytime I was with him I would finally feel alive again and felt like we just had magnetic chemistry. He also admitted to feeling the same way towards me. We tried not to do anything, but after a year of tension, we finally ended up hooking up. I knew he was married. I knew it was wrong. I never met the wife, but thought she must be a much better person than I was. My colleagues had met her, and I knew she was beautiful, fit, and seemed really kind. I was at such a low point in my life that I would take the scraps just to be with him. It was a tumultuous relationship and I tried to end it many times, but because we literally worked together in a tiny office and I still had intense feelings for him, it would start back up. I tried dating other people to take my mind off things but couldn't because I was so in love with him. I felt trapped and would frequently cry in the office bathroom, knowing I needed to get out somehow. I ended up breaking it off with him, resigning and taking a $70,000 pay cut just to get myself out of the situation ASAP. Then COVID hit and the new company scaled back their operations, and because I was a new employee, I was laid off. I then spent the next year in a super deep depression but eventually managed to get myself out of it. So, I honestly didn't set out to have a relationship with a married man, I just kind of fell into it over time and made a series of poor decisions. The wife ended up finding out after I had already resigned, and I know she is the main victim here and I feel terrible that I hurt someone innocent. I have since landed back on my feet, gotten a new job, lost all the weight I gained, and am feeling far more confident in myself. Obviously, I stay far away from married men, and if the situation had happened now instead of at such a low point in my life, I would like to think I would make better decisions. I guess I'm writing all this in response to the comments stating that these women are always heartless bitches who want to win over a married man. I mean, sure, that can be the case, but there are also situations which are far more nuanced. Experience 6. I was a piece of crap. Insecure, jealous, I had no hobbies, I was bitter and vindictive. I was 17 to 22 screwing around with a married man who was 10 years older than me. He left his first marriage and literally married a different woman, and I was still gobbling up his midsection like it was the best thing ever and thought he would wake up and choose me. It was mediocre at best, and he was a crap person too. I feel bad, mostly for myself. I was a young woman who didn't respect herself and allowed men to disrespect me and their wives. Not really much more to say than that. Experience 7. I chose to be a side chick when I was in the closet. I felt like no one else would love me, so this would have to be good enough. I didn't understand that I deserved more. It became abusive. It took me longer than it should to exit the relationship for good, but I finally did. I would never again. Being in a secret relationship puts you in a perfect position to be abused. No one to witness it. No one to share your concerns. Experience 8. Not me, but one of my friends who is still actively in her situation. She was a waitress at a high-end restaurant, and he travels with the NFL, not an athlete. He was married with 3 kids, 9 to 16, and his wife was a som. He wooed her with all of these fancy trips and started paying for her Botox and nails and crap. They started sleeping together about 2 years ago, and though he didn't have plans on leaving his wife, my friend's ex, who's a psycho-narcissist but pretends to have ethics, somehow found out, managed to somehow get a hold of his wife and spilled all the beans. My friend is now currently living with him in a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of the country. She won the man but is no longer benefiting from anything else. His salary was like $14,000 monthly, but after paying his wife's mortgage, child support, and spousal support, he's only bringing in about $4,000 to the table now. No surprise, his kids absolutely despise my friend, and also no surprise, the fancy trips are no longer a thing. Experience 9. We'd been on and off FWB for basically a decade ever since we were kids, whenever we both happened to not be in relationships at the same time. So, we were very used to meeting up, having a really great time together, and then going back to whatever our lives were already. At some point, our usual thing happened when I was single and lonely, but he had an LTR girlfriend. I guess on my end nothing was really out of the ordinary, and it was just something I was used to doing with that person when I didn't have someone. Going through the motions, I guess. Not thinking at all about the girlfriends I hadn't met. But I felt bad later when my brain caught up, so it ended because I turned our unspoken rule, which we broke, into a spoken rule and told him we wouldn't be doing that anymore. Experience 10. I thought I was being a haven for someone who really had a bad situation. I didn't try to save him as much as just let him be him because his wife allegedly stifled family fun. I offered an alternative instead. I didn't give him advice or anything, just stuck by his side. It was such a dumb outlook. Experience 11. I had a friend who persistently slept with a married man for a year, and I almost ended our friendship over it. It was hard to maintain a close friendship with somebody who I felt was doing something so morally abhorrent. Not because I couldn't forgive her, but because the friendship was hard to maintain since I wouldn't lie to her. So, she couldn't really talk to me about her relationship. Because she would say the same things that you are saying here, and I would tell her that it is a classic cheater move to paint the wife as a horrible person. How he just can't possibly leave her, and he's trapped. Tale as old as time. Eventually, we just spent the year talking about everything except her relationship. I would never bring it up on my own or be nasty to her, but if she would try to say
"Oh, John and I have this problem or that problem."
I would just be honest and say,
Well, the basis of that problem is that John is married to somebody else. It isn't going to change, and I would feel weird lying to you, pretending to help you solve this when we both know what the real root of the problem is.
she didn't like that very much. But what kind of shitty friend endorses your delusions when they're hurting you and hurting people around you? I've never been the nod and smile friend. It wouldn't sit right in my soul. The best day ever was when she finally stopped seeing him. I stayed friends with her because I thought about whether or not I would want all of my friends to leave me when I was doing the worst thing I'd ever done, or if I'd hope they'd find a way to still love me. I thought of the worst thing I'd ever done. Did I deserve to be abandoned forever? This event challenged me like no other. I had to do a lot of soul searching. I tried to find a way to support her without agreeing with the lies he told her, and support her without endorsing her actions. I'm not sure if it actually helped in the end, but I didn't think a good friend would reinforce those lies these men tell their affair partners. True friends don't let you stumble face first towards shark-infested waters and say nothing. Experience 12. I met him during my freshman year of high school. He was a senior. He became my closest guy friend, and I eventually lost my virginity to him at 19 years old. He was in the Air Force and stationed in a nearby state. I actually met two of his girlfriends when he brought them to meet his parents. Every other visit home he would spend the weekend with me but told his partner that he was visiting his parents. This went on for almost 3 years, and I ended it when he hooked up with an acquaintance while he was in town, and I was too sick to hang out. At the time, I had tricked myself into thinking that I was just so desirable that someone would be willing to cheat to be with me, but over 10 years later I realized that I had massive insecurity issues and was easily manipulated. He served me all the red flags on a silver platter, and I was still devastated when he cheated on me. He had a drinking problem and would push me to do things sexually that I wasn't quite ready for, and the whole time I would tell myself that I was so cool and sexy. I could chalk it up to naivete or blame being inexperienced in relationships, but I think in reality I was getting a kind of attention that I wasn't getting from anyone else. Experience 13. He came into my life not long after I was assaulted, and he reminded me of my dad. In the beginning, he said he was single, but when I found out it was a lie, I still stuck around. He would tell me that he was going to leave her, but obviously, he never did. I was so stuck on him being my safe place that I would distance myself for a while, but as soon as I was in a bad mindset, I would run back to him to feel safe again. It was a vicious cycle, and the pain and heartbreak physically hurt. Eventually, he stopped feeling safe for me because of how inconsistent he was and how he hurt me over and over again emotionally. I eventually realized that he never really cared about me. His girlfriend was very religious and wouldn't sleep with him, but I would. He would send me sexy videos, and anytime I would try to be sweet with him, he would try to make it sexual. It would make me feel dirty and cheap, but I dealt with it. I feel disgusted thinking about it now. I was basically just his intercourse doll. I feel like he took advantage of my emotional vulnerability at the time. I'm still responsible for my own actions, for letting him manipulate me and not respecting myself and his girlfriend. I feel guilty every day for what I did to his girlfriend. But the strongest feeling is hate. I despise him. Experience 14. Not a woman, but I was the side piece to a man who swore, up and down, that he was straight. Until he had a drop of alcohol, that was. Then he couldn't keep his hands off me. Kept reassuring himself that he was doing this as a favor to me. And that I must want this. His girlfriend was a really nice girl too. If a bit up her own arse sometimes. We had several classes in school together, and I'd occasionally walk her home. She had moved away by the time the guy in question and I started fooling around. and they were maintaining a long-distance relationship. Why'd I do it? Mostly selfish indulgence. Aside from losing my virginity years before, I had never really been touched by anyone in a meaningful way. I was lonely, touch-starved, and the option was right there. Of course, I was going to give in to it. In my head, I was cold, and for a brief moment there was warmth. I lied to myself for a time because she had commented on me and him kissing being hot, so I thought she'd be okay with it if it and more became a semi-regular thing. She was not. In truth, I just didn't really care what she thought/felt and cared more about myself. Selfish? Yeah, I guess. But I'm not particularly sorry about that part of it. I am more sorry about allowing myself to be used just for a bloody bit of skin contact. Anyway, after a while things stopped. They split up. Our lives went on. And as far as I know, none of us even think about the other. And that's that, LOL. Experience 15. I've done it with 2 different guys. I had low self-esteem and somehow thought I was better than my girlfriends. I was trying to be the cool girl so much. It's funny because I didn't want to be in a relationship with these guys as they were cheaters, but I liked the attention. The intercourse wasn't even that good FFS. In the end, I got sick of being someone's naughty little secret and having to lie and pretend all the time. Years later, I went to therapy and wouldn't dream of doing it now. If I was single, I'd been in a relationship for 2.5 years. Experience 16. He wasn't technically married but engaged. I worked with both him and his fiancée. I was single and in a very selfish mindset. I became fast friends with him and caught feelings but was never planning on acting on them in any way. A different coworker and I were talking one day and said that he had feelings for me too and thought I was attractive. He and his fiancée were heavily on the rocks because he had just found out that she had cheated years ago at the beginning of their relationship. He figured he'd even score and sleep with someone else. I was his go-to. I knew it was wrong, but I was entranced by the thrill of the secrecy, and the fact that we all worked together was just so hot. We agreed it would be a one-time fling and I was fine with that. He then later tells me he wants to again, so it happens a couple more times. We would hang out at bars together and talk and I started to fall for him, but I knew he would never leave her, so I ended it. They were set to be married a year later, so I gave him a chance to tell her, but he wouldn't, so I did. They ended up getting married anyway. I am not proud of this. It's my biggest regret. Experience 17. I didn't know I was a side chick. As soon as I found out, I was out of that. I am not ever that desperate that I need to share a man. He did get the shock of his life when I left him. I think he had a huge ego and was used to being the one who did ghosting and dumping. Never will I be an enabler for a guy to continue treating girls that way. It did wake me up to how horrible some people are, horrible and unlovable to me. No man is that special in my opinion. I turned down some nice guys when I agreed to start seeing him as well. I hate the feeling of being fooled. I feel sorry for his partner. Her life must be an insecure hell with him. Experience 18. I always thought we were just work friends. I knew he was married, and he always mentioned his wife with a smile, so I never thought about him in that way, and for a long time I wasn't attracted to him at all. However, we started spending lots of time together due to work and somehow both found in each other what we were missing in our SO's long and interesting conversations. We ended up confessing our feelings to each other but said that nothing could happen as we were both taken. However, I guess, hormones took over and we started getting physical. I remember feeling extremely guilty after every kiss but also excited, like I was finally alive. I ended it after I went to his apartment and saw pictures of his wife. That's when I finally realized that she was a real person, not just someone from his stories, and I was just disgusted by myself. He still tried to contact me, and we met one time after that, but then one interesting thing happened. I found out my so was cheating. The pain and heartbreak I experienced when I found out, and I am still heartbroken, is something that cannot be described. I would have never imagined the pain to be so strong. I immediately cut all ties with the married man and told him to never contact me again and to focus on his marriage and his wife. It still haunts me that, if she found out, she would be crushed just like I was crushed. I would never want that pain to anyone, and the thought that I may have caused that intense life-changing pain to his wife is just disturbing. I still have nightmares of what I have done. Probably will regret that all my life. Experience 19. Self-hatred and that I'm too mentally immature and weak to leave yet. I fell hard 2.5 years ago. I had the impression he was single because he gave me undying attention and wouldn't sleep just to talk to me and open up. Once he started getting a little more distant, 3 months into our relationship, he told me that he had a partner of over a decade. The funny thing is, I actually didn't believe he had a partner because nobody would tolerate their man talking to a risque cosplayer all day and night. Screw that. However, after looking back, she was probably away on a business trip, or they were on a break and maybe he thought he could try his hand at flirting with someone who gave him the attention he needed. Sometimes I like to think we gave each other Stockholm Syndrome LMAO. He never left after I confessed my feelings, said I was confused by his bachelor-esque behavior, and said I was sorry for devoting my attention to him. He said he was sorry he couldn't give me a relationship. That was the point that made me feel like I couldn't leave because he would not let me go. I even told him to let me go once during an argument. I didn't ask about his wife and don't want to. But someday I'll be ready to leave him high and dry. A lot of the more loving things he does to me bug me and make me latch on more. And it's my fault for being unstable, younger than them, and far away, that I can't be his main focus 100% of the time. Right after I learned he had a partner, and that they were monogamous, I swallowed my pride and told myself I was just a talk every waking moment and share your entire life pseudo-girlfriend, and that their love might fizzle out after 13 years together. We're still the closest friends, and I'm trying to go the longest. I can just ghost him because I can't break this, but I can disappear. My brain says they won't stay together, and if I brute force this friendship or lose feelings, which happens every 2 to 3 years, I might have a shot at happiness with him, but my soul says they will die hand in hand, and I will self-sabotage our entire friendship one day, and that will be that. Then I can move on to someone who is single and who actually loves me. As of now, I'm ignoring his 23 texts, yes, 23, and will just continue as far as I can.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.